It is feast week, dead ball dancing. Justin, this might be the best week of college basketball every year. Quite frankly, because a lot of the teams that are scared to play other teams, they get into an MTE and all of a sudden you have to play
Yeah.
a real team. And man, our rankings and the scores really reflect some teams that weren't ready for tournament style play. But overall, a pretty good week of basketball. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Yeah. I mean, we saw some powerhouses look like absolute powerhouses, and then we saw some teams that obviously we were really high on, earlier in the year, like you see here in Houston and Tennessee, a lot of the SEC teams fall off. So, looking forward to getting into the show. I love these NTE tournaments, man. With the exception of that one, that players ERA tournament. I don't know what the hell that was, but it's like some teams there could go undefeated, but then not move on in the bracket because of the I didn't like that one per se, but the rest of the tournaments were just absolute blast, man. Especially capstoned by the Maui Invitational, which is just the freaking awesome one to watch every year, right? So
Yeah, Mao was pretty wild this year. We'll get
yeah,
into some of that.
yep.
Uh Man, I watched more Florida basketball
I knew you were going
this
there.
week than I have for like most of the season. Just we've talked about Florida a lot. They're kind of all over the place, but I hate watching Florida play basketball. This year's Florida team.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
couldn't figure out why. I'm sitting and I'm watching, and I start to realize it. I'm have another game on a second screen, and I start to realize what it is I hate about Florida. They're Wisconsin.
yeah,
They play with their food, they underperform, they take boneheaded shots, but then they'll make up for it, right? They'll go on like a 9-0 run to end the half like Wisconsin did, and it erases a lot of sins. But then you're sitting there at the end of the game, and it's pretty much who you thought they were. The difference is that Florida is by an order of magnitude more talented and able to recruit than Wisconsin is. So where Wisconsin will pull back and then end up losing the game, Florida eventually just pulls away. But when I was watching it in fits and starts across a couple different screens, that's something that I really picked up on. I don't think I'd ever tied Florida to Wisconsin in that way before. They're frustrating to watch. And that's the kind of thing that takes Wisconsin out of our top 25, takes Wisconsin out of the top 40 nationally, but keeps Florida from winning an SEC, keeps Florida from winning a tournament again, because you
yeah,
can't play like that in March.
yeah. And you know what? I think when I was watching them this week and this weekend, Rick, it kind of took me back to the conversation that we had last week about coaching versus players, right? Where does the blame lie? And what I want to make the comparison I want to make with you right now is let's compare Tommy Lloyd to Todd Golden. Tommy Lloyd being U of A, Todd Golden being Florida. And you look at Tommy Lloyd, and it feels like he can coach his way through a immature and mediocrely talented roster. Hot take: Arizona recruits really well. They're a very good basketball team, obviously. Whereas you look at Todd Golden and you look at the recruits they lost, whether it was graduation of the transfer portal, right? His roster isn't as good as last year, which you and I have discussed at length this year, and it feels like he can't coach them through the trials and tribulations. Losing to TCU as the University of Florida is, between you and I, Rick, that's disgusting, right? And the reason why I agree with you in not liking the way they play basketball is because they're sloppy. Everything that they did right last year, they have not brought back this year. They're committing 20 personal fouls a game. That's 300th in the nation, right? They're turning the ball over 15 times a game. That's 300th in the nation. Last year, they were top 50 across both of those two stats, no matter how you spin it. And so they like muddy the game up with their lack of intangibles. And I think that's why I've struggled to watch them this year, and why, and we'll get into this in a second, I don't really have them finishing anywhere near the top in the SEC. Probably a hot take, of course. We'll get into that here in a second, but couldn't agree more. And I love the call out.
Yeah, and the SEC is kind of a mess. You look at our top 25 here, and where have they gone? Where has the SEC fallen here? And there's some wild swings in our rankings, and a lot of that is because there's only two of us ranking, so the votes get a little shifted, and there is a log jam from like 7 to 35, where we have similar ideas spread across the
Yeah.
spectrum, and
Yeah.
it's flipping those teams in and out. I mean, Utah State up 10, a bad Florida team up 8, an Illinois team we talk a lot about up 6. You know, the Zags down 11, Tennessee down 7, Missouri down 5. There's new teams up. There's teams that fell out. You know, we brought Kentucky all the way back to 13. So I just wanted to call that out for our viewers. There's a lot more fluctuation in our rankings because there's only the two of us ranking.
Yep.
But I think the process is sound. And when I'm looking at this, Florida at 11, Kentucky at 13, Bama at 15, and Vandy right behind them feels like how the SEC should probably be ranked at this point.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we'll get into in a second, and is the reason why we're continuing to see so many shifts in these rankings is because you and I were both still really high on the SEC this year, and as we both agreed, the SEC is not what it was last year. Let's just be honest with each other. They'll probably return the same amount of teams, but like in terms of quality of basketball, it's not there. And in my opinion, they're kind of in shambles. Like if you, I'm going to go through a couple of the main teams that were huge last year. Tennessee beat Houston, huge win, right? Lost to Kentucky by 5. Horrible. Florida beat FSU by 2, lost to TCU by 4. Bama, 3-game losing streak, lost to 10 to Gonzaga, 4 to Illinois, 7 to Purdue, right? Arkansas, barely skated by Samford and Winford by a combined 5 points and then lost to Duke by 9. So it's like whoever's playing well that week in the SEC is going to have a direct impact on the rankings, because if you look, we still have 7 SEC teams in our top 25. But depending how each one of those teams perform on a week-by-week basis, they're going to fall to 40. Then they might come back up to 20. It's just depending on the quality of opponent and the style of win, right? So, yeah, I'm a bit disappointed in the SEC, and I'm really confused to see how it's turning out. Who do you got winning the SEC this year?
I still have Florida. I still have Florida winning the SEC. This team, even if they're not the 1 seed going into the SEC tournament, Florida is still the team to beat in the SEC. When Florida is on and performing, there is not a better team. When Florida is off, they might not be top 5.
Agreed.
We actually have 9 SEC teams in our top 25.
Thank you.
And I think that really speaks to what you're saying about the flavor of the week and kind of what I'm talking about with, you know, Florida might not be top 5. I mean, Auburn, who we have all but written off, is here. They're impossible to ignore at this point.
Agreed.
They're playing well. I mean, Georgia is a team that was right on the cusp last year and is looking better this year. Mizzou could be the best team in this conference. And then like, oh yeah, Vandy's hanging out too. So these teams are here, and it's not that the SEC is bad. It's that the SEC is visibly worse than they were last year, but last year was an all-timer. So, you know, as these games start to shake out, I think we're going to really see like a Big Ten situation where all these SEC teams kind of bunch up, and whoever can get hot in late January and go on a run. You know, I don't know how the schedule shakes out, but if Florida has a 3-game run where they play Georgia and Auburn and Vandy and they win all those games by double digits, Florida's a national championship favorite at that point.
Probably.
But if they lose all those games, they're, you know, the 7th seed in the SEC tournament. We're talking about 4 or 5 line for Florida. So I'm really excited for conference season, which, you know, obviously is a whole nother segment of college basketball, but we're getting these previews of good SEC teams against good other teams.
Yeah.
And the returns aren't great so far for the SEC, with a couple notable exceptions.
Yeah, agreed. And I originally took, I think, Bama to win the SEC because of how powerfully they were playing early in the season. And now some of those early season wins, specifically St. John's and a few others, right, look like crap, given that each one of those teams they've beaten, you know, has kind of fallen off the board here for us. So I don't know who I have winning. I'm going to pause because I know you have one question about my top 25 that we'll get into a little bit later that involves an SEC team. But yeah, I'm still definitely up in the air on where I'm going with the SEC championship. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, you brought up St. John's, and the Big East is another really interesting one there. I still think it's UConn's conference to lose. They are the best
agreed.
team in the conference. But St. John's ain't shit. St. John's fans, come at me because you didn't exist 2 seasons ago, and I don't hear a lot of you chirping now. One-hit wonder, man.
Yeah.
Like, if I told you they finished behind Creighton, Butler, Marquette, Xavier, and Seton Hall, would it blow your mind?
Nope. And we have them.
Good.
You have them at 50. I didn't mean to cut you off. You have them at 50. I have them at 40. And I think I'm overvaluing them at 40. They look like crap. So I'm with you.
Some of the metrics are still there. They're 18th in Ken Palm, 7th on offense. I mean, they can score when everything's clicking right, but I'm not trusting this team to go in and win. I can't bet on this team. I can't bet futures on this team. The Big East is too good for them to play this poorly. And yes, they've played ranked teams, and yes, they've played big games, but they haven't looked good in those games, and they haven't won those games. So, I mean, you and me could start a basketball team tomorrow, and we could schedule really, really good. It doesn't mean that we should be ranked. It doesn't mean we should be talked about as a contender.
Agreed.
I think it's kind of where St. John's is now. They are a Big East team, and what I'm kind of hoping for is that UConn falters. And the reason for that is because there is so much talent in the second tier of this Big East conference that I really want to see on a national stage. I want them to see national attention and ESPN attention because they're fun and exciting teams to watch. I'm going to talk about Creighton a little bit later, but I mean, there are teams here who are capable of putting on a performance that puts them toe to toe with top SEC teams, with top Big Ten teams. Not good enough to win those games. But if St. John's isn't winning those games, I don't want to hear about St. John's, Michigan State. I want to see Butler. I want to see Marquette. I want to see these other runs show up and play basketball, because if they're not going to win, at least give me a good show.
And we have 2 teams, from the Big East. I don't want to jump the gun, that are both on notice for us, from a positive perspective. And that's for a reason, right? They have good quality wins. The style of basketball is sustainable, right? And it bodes well for the tournament. So, you start looking at the recruiting is getting better in the Big East, right? UConn has looked a little bit vulnerable at times. Not to say that they're, not still the favorite to win, of course, but I'm hoping that a couple of these mid to low end Big East teams jump up and snag one from like a St. John's or like a UConn or like a Creighton, obviously, that is still very talented. So, we'll obviously get into the Big East a little bit more later, but yeah, I really like the call out there, and I'm definitely bummed that St. John's, has fallen off the wayside, because I do like the way that Pitino coaches. So, I also hope that they figure it out going into the tournament as well. And speaking of teams that are massively underperforming expectations, Houston, man, holy crap, right? I can't figure out why I dove in, did the research, so I know what's going on now, but just not the same team, man. 1-point win versus a really bad Auburn, 4-point win versus a really bad Syracuse, 3-point loss versus Tennessee, and 10-point win versus Notre Dame. If you would have told me that Notre Dame would have been within striking distance of Houston in the MTE mid-year tournament, I would have told you you're an idiot, right? And I'm trying to figure out why, right? Because their defense is still their defense, right? 3rd in scoring, 13th in field goals, 9th in 3-point, 14th in 3-point percentage. They commit way too many fouls, Rick. It's the same thing that I just complained about with Florida. They're 185th in the nation in fouls committed, so teams are getting downhill. They're getting to the line because they're able to exploit the bigs that have all of a sudden just forgotten how to play defense, right? And I know Cryer was good, right? LJ Cryer was a player of the year candidate. He was actually my player of the year candidate in our superlative episode for season 1. I know he graduated. I know how good he was. He was throwing up 35, 38 points in the March Madness. This guy was incredible. But I mean, they cannot play offense if their life depended on it, Rick. And it's showing against these mid to high tier Power 4 teams like an Auburn or like a Tennessee, where all of a sudden you're 214th in field goal percentage and 208th in 2-point percentage. You're going to get exploited, and you're going to lose to a mid-American team that is hungrier than you are, right? 255th in second half points, 325th in free throws made, the aggression and lack of discipline is completely opposite to what we saw from the Houston team last year, and especially with Arizona being at this point probably the favorite to win the national championship. I'm very concerned about them when they get into Big 12 play because you're not going to get more tuned up playing against the bad schedule that they currently have. I mean, they have Arkansas on December 20th. That's it for non-con. Everyone else is like Alcorn State, School of the Blind, A&M. Like, and then you have Texas Tech on 1/6 and West Virginia on 1/13. Are we sure that this version of Houston beats a Texas Tech and beats a West Virginia? West Virginia isn't in our top 25, but they're playing really good teams really close. So they're not the same. I'm confused as to why Samson doesn't have them gelling, Rick, because they scheduled well, and I really expected them to perform better at this point in the season. Very disappointed.
Well, and really another spot for your coaches matter theory to shine, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there is not a real game until the Arkansas game. They play Florida State, Jackson State, and New Orleans.
Yeah.
Whose athletic director is Master P, just for the record.
Wait, what? The rapper?
Yeah. They lost all those kids to that betting scandal, and then they righted the ship by bringing in Master P to be their athletic director. Yeah, if you get a chance, just like read news clippings on New Orleans from the last 18 months. It is fascinating. But not real games, right? So if it is coaching, get these kids right. There's no reason that they shouldn't win by double digits against Arkansas with 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks to get yourself right, because they are still elite on defense. All you need to do is take just better percentage shots on offense, not make boneheaded plays, turn the ball over like crazy. But that's all coachable moments, right? That's all things you can fix, especially coming out of a very high profile second half against Notre Dame where you almost shit the bed. And a lot of the country saw that game. So I think they can straighten it out. I like the call out. But the Big 12 schedule, not stacked with great teams, but I mean, even Arizona State played USC tighter than they probably should have.
Yep.
So if we're getting better across the board, which I think is a fair thing to say about the Big 12,
yes,
Houston needs to also improve at the same rate, or somebody's going to catch you. Somebody's going to catch up to you here. And as you said, Baylor and West Virginia and TCU are all kind of waiting in the wings here. And if they smell blood in the water, you are not that much better where you can survive this Big 12 schedule.
I mean, you only have 3 guys in double figures, right? So like you have no balance. And I understand that, remember early season, we were talking about this front court being like one of the best front courts in the nation. And there's just like, I'm just so disappointed. Like your second leading rebounder is a guard, which Milos Uzan, who I hate because he got away with murder in the NCAA tournament. But it's just they need to get it together. They need to right the ship, to your point. And this is where coaching comes into play. So yeah, especially with the improving Big 12. So yeah, very, very concerned overall for Houston. Oh, did I lose Rick? Hello? Hello? Is it just me on the show right now? Okay, so I'm gonna take us through the rest of the top 25. So I think again, talking about the Big 12, right? So for us, early season, we were talking about the Big 12 being one of the worst Power 5 conferences, right? I think we had it ranked where I had Big 10, SEC, Big 12, and then Big East in terms of like the conference rankings, or how good the conferences are. And you'll notice once our top 25 comes back up, I apologize that it's not popping up, but Big 12 teams are starting to creep into our top 25. Iowa State, obviously a team that was well outside the top 30 to start the year. They are now at 6. Arizona, I believe we had them in the bottom 25, meaning we were like 20 to 25 for Arizona. They're the number 1 team in the nation. So, the Big 12 is definitely having a resurgent season. We don't want to take away any credit from them. But yeah, I would say that overall, we're still pretty high on the Big Ten and the SEC. Now, I'm going to try to share my screen so we can talk about the rankings. 1 second. Select something to share. Window. There we go. Let me know if you guys can see this. I'm trying to save what I can here. Yeah. So again, here's our top 25. One of the things that I wanted to get into next. Do I have him back? Yeah, I got him back now.
I don't know what happened there.
All right, I stopped sharing, so you can jump in. I was just complaining about the Big 12 while you were out.
Yeah, it looked like I was still live.
Oh, really?
And that you were gone.
Oh, really?
And clearly that was not what happened, because that is not what had happened on YouTube. So
yeah, that's not what happened on YouTube either. That's why I was confused. I was like,
all right.
Don't worry.
Where were you at? What were you talking about?
I was about to start my
Michigan.
I'll turn it back over to you on Michigan, but I'm going to start. I was just about to start on Iowa State, and because we were on the Big 12, I figured we might as well finish off the Big 12 conversation. Iowa State, we had them ranked well outside. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, sweet. We had them, both you and I, ranked well outside the top 25 to start the year, right? We had no faith in this team. They crapped the bed last year, and we didn't have a lot of faith, right, going into this year. Roster turnover, it felt like the coach was letting them down. And all they did is they came into this season with an absolute chip on their shoulder, and they are beating teams down badly. 30-point win versus Syracuse. 18-point win versus Creighton. You take out St. John's. And one of the questions that we asked about this team last week was, can this, and you rightfully asked it, Rick, can this offense get it done? Can this offense get it done? Their average margin of victory is currently 26 points, including a 16-point win over Mississippi State, 18 over Creighton, 1 over St. John's, and 30 over Syracuse. These aren't shitty teams that they're just beating down. They are beating down Power 5 teams. And they threw 83 against a top 10 defense that we just spoke about in St. John's. They're now 26 in point per game, 20th in field goals, 2nd in field goals made, 26th in 2-point percentage, and 50th in 3-point percentage. And oh yeah, it's still the Iowa State defense from last year, where it's top 30 in the nation, no matter how you spin it, 26th in scoring, 28th in free throws, and 3rd in forced turnovers per game. It feels like this team is starting to gel at the right time, whereas last year, Rick, if you remember, we were high on them, and then they fizzled out. This year, it feels like they're ramping up, and they're getting more well-gelled and put together going into a tougher Big 12 than we thought it was going to be. So I am fully back on the Iowa State bandwagon hype train, because I love the way that this team plays basketball. Love the way. So just wanted to give them their kudos. I probably have them overvalued at, I have them at 4, but you also
I have them at 8.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's the same.
Yeah. So I think they're very rightly put at 6 here in our top 25. Watch out for them.
I had a great monologue going about Michigan, as I thought I was still alive, so I just launched into full-on, eyes in the camera, talking about Michigan basketball.
I was like, you froze. I don't want to hear about Michigan basketball anyways. Fuck Michigan, right? So,
all right. So Michigan is now the odds-on favorite to win the national championship.
Yeah,
tied with Purdue.
Yep.
1A, 1B for the national championship. The Big Ten controls the road to March.
Yeah.
But I don't think Michigan is just like back. This isn't just another good Michigan team. I think this is one of the best offenses in the entire country.
Yep.
This Michigan team just put up 101 points on big bad Mark Few and his Gonzaga Bulldogs. Say what you will about the Zags. They don't really do that. So either he's really lost his luster or this Michigan team is incredible. I think this is a Final Four caliber roster. I think they are ready. And then you go just a little bit across the state, and while everyone was eating turkey and watching the Cowboys and the Chiefs play football, Michigan State was murdering a blue blood very quietly. This Michigan State team is really, really good.
Same thing to Kentucky.
A little bit. I had Michigan State number 9 in my preseason rankings. I just want to put that out there.
We both had them up there, right? I think because they were.
This is my monologue. It's not about you.
Fair.
It's about the AP poll.
Keep going.
Obviously, playing really, really, really well on defense. Holding UNC to 58 points on 38% shooting is awesome, no matter how you slice it.
Yep.
I am fascinated to see when Big Ten season starts. Some Big Ten teams are playing really, really well in an SEC style, and some Big Ten teams are playing really, really well in a Big Ten style. Purdue is probably the most boring team to watch. They are so good. I would say boringly dominant is probably a good way to put it.
Right at this point, yeah.
I mean, they did Baha Mar, and there might as well not been anybody else there. I don't know how the Purdue guy hasn't talked about this yet, but like Texas Tech was non-existent in that game.
Yep.
And so give me the Big Ten to make a lot of noise here. And we know there's going to be some cannibalization as they get into conference play, but I think we might be looking at the Big Ten to have the most bids this year because the top of this conference is stacked. And I think it's going to allow for mid-range teams, and it's going to hurt me to say this, but mid-range teams like Wisconsin and Northwestern to find their way into a tournament in a year where they probably shouldn't. I love the Big Ten. I love what I'm seeing from the Michigan State teams. And then Purdue is omnipresent. They have not really looked like the risk that we saw early on.
Yeah.
They've seemed to have righted the ship, and everything's good in West Lafayette.
Yeah. Well, good for now. Michigan, I am impressed with. I agree with you. When you look into what they've done, they beat Gonzaga's ass like badly. They made Gonzaga look like a freshman high school team. But I'm highly concerned as a Purdue fan, as a very biased Purdue fan, about Michigan State. I mean, Michigan State is running through teams where it's like a 38 holding a UNC high-powered offense to 38% shooting is a dominating performance. I don't think people understand how great that is when you look at how UNC's roster is constructed. If we have to play, and by we I mean Purdue, if we have to play Michigan State in Lansing and Michigan State is this good, I'm hoping they lose to Iowa and Duke before we even have to think about seeing them. When do we see them? Do we not play them? We play them on the 26th of February. I'm concerned. And thankfully that game is in it's in Mackey. But yeah, I like Michigan State to potentially win the Big Ten. That's how good I think Michigan State is this year. Very concerning.
I only had one real issue with your rankings this week, and I want to talk to you about. I want to talk to you about McNeese.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are we honestly saying, and we do our rankings differently, and this is why I'm asking the question: do you honestly think McNeese beats Baylor on a neutral court? All right, hold on to that one. Do you think McNeese beats UCLA?
Yes.
That's fair.
Yep.
Ole Miss?
Yes.
Wake, Auburn, Ohio State,
Yes.
Texas
Yes.
Tech, Illinois, Kentucky.
Auburn, Ohio State, Texas Tech. Yes. Mississippi. Yes. Um, the Baylor one's interesting, right? The Baylor one's interesting, and I think that more falls on I don't like the way that Baylor plays than I think McNeese is phenomenal. Now, you look at McNeese's roster construction, and they come out and they punch you in the mouth. That's what I like about them, right? They're 16th in first half scoring. They're number 9 in the country in opponent 2-point percentage defense, which bodes well against a Baylor team who really can't shoot at all. Like, let's be honest. So to me, if you put them on a neutral site, and I mean neutral, like nowhere near either of these fan bases, like stick them in Antarctica or something. I think McNeese has the roster construction to beat a Baylor team who right now their best win is Creighton, which is not a very good win. So yeah, you're right. I'm probably being a little bit unrealistic about where McNeese really lies, but I think it's more me wanting to disrespect Baylor because Scott Drew, when we talk about coaches and how good he's been over the last decade, does not have this team firing for the past 3 years. And at some point, we need to start holding these teams accountable because we did have Baylor in our top 25 to start the season. I believe they were 24 or 23. And if you're only going to beat Charlton State by 13 points and then lose to St. John's by 15, there's a pretty good chance that I'm going to disrespect you for the rest of the year. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. Yeah, and I don't know how much more top 25 talk you have, but I seeded the conversation the way I did, hoping you'd pick up on that Creighton game because I am more high on Creighton than you are on McNeese.
Yep.
And there's a lot going on around the country, and McNeese obviously a really good team.
Yeah.
They have the pedigree. It just really comes back to some of the conversations we had early in the year about how we assemble our rankings.
Yep.
Because I have McNeese, I believe, winning their conference, but
You do.
nowhere near our top 50.
Yeah, you have McNeese at 68. Yeah, they're gonna be in the tournament. Yeah, they're gonna be in the tournament. So I'm probably overvaluing them a little bit, but I like their style of basketball. They came out and they absolutely dominated Clemson. So we know that they can do it against Power 4, Power 3 teams. And to me, they returned enough. Their style of play hasn't changed on the defensive side of the ball. In fact, it's gotten a little bit better. So I would like to see them do the same exact thing they did to Clemson last year to any of the Power 5 teams they played this year. Last call out that I have on top 25, and I know you have one more, is Gonzaga looks like a JV team against any halfway decent teams. Losing to Michigan by 40, I cannot tell you the bubbliness and excitedness that I felt watching that game. But then you look at that, right, and you're like, okay, that's an outlier because Michigan's that good. You only beat ASU by 12, right? Bama by 10. I'm okay with that. They can't shoot. They're 207th in 3-point percentage and 186th in free throw percentage. And they are getting exposed by these teams that their brand of basketball is not sustainable. If you're held to 33% field goal percentage and 13% from 3 against a Michigan team whose defense is good, but not nearly as good as some of these tournament teams you're going to face, you're in big trouble. They'll win their stupid whack conference, right? We know they will. St. Mary's might steal a game from them. But we saw them be vulnerable in the NCAA tournament last year. And I think they're overvalued again this year. And you rightly called it out, earlier. It feels like any time they go up against a Power 5 teams, their defense crumbles. So I'm interested to see how they finish out the season in the top 25.
Well, and it's what you'd expect, right? If I told you there was a directional, well, they're not a directional school. If I told you there was a regional based school who went undefeated every year and
Yeah.
has had tournament success, like
Yeah.
it's not an indictment of the
I lose him again. Is it? It's not my internet, right? Huh. Anyways, I can finish his argument for him because I know where he was going.
Zags get ranked in the AP.
I think we lost you for a while, but you're back. I think.
Hello?
Do you have the Wi-Fi of like what is?
I don't have Wi-Fi.
God damn! I was about to finish his
We're hardlined in. I don't know what's going on today, but we're gonna find out.
Yeah, I was about to tell the audience that I can finish your argument for you, but I would rather you do it.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what's going on.
Okay.
We've never had like
No, we haven't.
issues.
No, we haven't.
Right. So we dump all of our viewers. Gonzaga sucks.
Yes.
Gonzaga sucks, and there's no reason. If you're not a Gonzaga fan, sorry, Zach, if you're watching, but like Gonzaga's not a real team. It's not a real place. They recruit really, really well for a D2 school. It's not, they should not be talked about as in the conversation. And yes, they've had a ton of success. Yes, they've gone deep in tournaments. But if you look at it, like the reason we love the tournament is teams that don't belong there do well from time to time.
Yep.
So making the tournament, yes, they beat the tar out of their conference. Excellent. Good for you. That's awesome. I wish Wisconsin could beat the tar out of their conference. So I can't take anything away there. But there's 26 auto bids for a reason. Like getting an auto bid and having a ranking based on being undefeated is ridiculous.
Agreed.
The game against Michigan is more indicative of where they are as a program, at least this year, right? Yeah. And I'll get in an argument about previous years if somebody really wants to, but at least this year, this Gonzaga team is probably going to win the conference, is probably going to win their first game of the tournament, and then they're going to play a real team and they're going to lose to them.
Agreed. And you and I are not going to cross that bridge of where I think Gonzaga ranks all time because it's going to get heated and we're going to start throwing things, and I don't want to do that. But they weren't good last year either. And if you measure success, nope, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Anyways, nope, we're not doing that. Let's move on.
Let's move on before the internet blows up again.
I was about to do it. I'm not doing it.
We have talked a lot already about the Big East, and we are about to talk some more about the Big East. But before we do that, I wanted to call out just the beautiful synergy. We don't talk about our unnoticed teams. So putting the Big Ten West kind of on blast here for their awful basketball. I appreciate that. But you know, Creighton, I've punched all around my Creighton arguments today.
Yep.
I love Creighton. I think this is a really, really good team. Full stop. They are probably not the best team in the Big East. That's UConn. They're probably not the second best team in the Big East. But what I like about this Creighton team, the way they're built, the way they win, they're 4-3 right now. You know who else is 4-3? St. John's. Creighton does everything just well enough to win Big East games. They're not gonna take down anybody nationally. There's only one thing they're actually good at. They don't foul, like ever.
Yeah, ever.
And that pays dividends in tight games at the end of tight games. So what I really, really want to see from Creighton the rest of the way, and the reason I have them on notice is we are pretty much into conference play.
Yep.
Play tight, play to your strength, which is being alive in the last 2 minutes of the game. Make your free throws, win your games. If somebody takes care of UConn in the early rounds of the Big East tournament, Creighton is going to be right there. And I like Creighton to be at least in the conversation for the Big East.
And I agree. I think they're better than what their record has indicated so far, except for like a 30-point loss to Gonzaga. That's their really only issue that I have with Creighton this year. 15 is crazy though. Like, and the reason why I'm saying 15 is because that's where Rick has Creighton, and I think likely they're the second best Big East team this year. I'm hoping they beat UConn and win the Big East. Honestly, I hate Connecticut. So we'll see. I think they've traditionally been a phenomenally shooting team. We haven't seen that this year. So once that gels and once the ball starts going in the basket, I love the call out, and I think they have a really good chance to sprint up the Big East ladder.
Yeah.
I'll keep it
Really quick. Looking at my
Yeah,
rankings,
yeah.
I have ahead of Arkansas, Tennessee, and Auburn, and I probably should not. That would put them at 18. I like them better than Bama, Utah State, USC, Iowa, Texas Tech, Vandy. I like them in front of them. 15 is absolutely aggressive.
Yeah.
Out of those
Yeah.
like second tier SEC teams minus Alabama, I think they could beat those teams.
Yeah. I mean, Vanderbilt's the best team in the SEC, obviously, this year. So that's a bit of a. I was waiting for the reaction that they are. So that one is probably tough to come by. But agreed. I think Creighton got a little bit exposed versus Iowa State. I want to say that's but that Iowa State
the
team
fourth
is
best team in the country.
That's correct. Yeah, and we have them at 6, so I'm not too mad at that loss. I'll keep it in the Big East, man. I'm gonna go Seton Hall. Best start in years. 7-1, 5-0 at home, including an AP ranked win over NC State. Do me a favor, go back in last week's episode and scroll to like 55 minutes where Rick says, "Hey, is there any games that you're watching out for next week?" And listen to what I say. They're winning against good teams with absolutely no, and I mean zero, Rick, offensive efficiency. So imagine what will happen once the ball, similar to Creighton, right, starts going in the basket. They are a top 10 defense in the nation. I mean, they are 9th in points, 14th in allowed assists, 8th in opponents' assist to turnover ratio, 10th in 2-point percentage, 2nd in opponents' field goal made. They are 3rd in second half. I mean, this team is incredibly tenacious on the defensive side of the ball, and I love that they are better in the second half than they are in the first half of basketball games. To me, that screams that this is a team that can close games out. They know they can't shoot, Rick. So what do? They go and they outscore teams in the paint 40-26, right? And 9 blocks and 11 steals versus NC State. Like it feels like a team that can jump up and grab a win and upset UConn in the Big East regular season tournament. And obviously, tough loss versus USC, my team here that I'm going to call out later. But I love the matchups against K-State and Rutgers. And I love the start to the Big East season. They got Pravi, Nova, and Marquette. That feels like a stretch of 5 games where if you go 5-0 against those 5 teams that I just named, there's a chance I'm gonna slot you, even higher in the top 25 because you now have wins against quality tournament teams. So big ups to Seton Hall in the Big East. Really excited to see where they end both the regular season and conference tournament.
Quick shout out to Sky Clark for UCLA, who is a guard who wears number 55.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I thought it was weird. I was watching their game and just stood out to me. The other thing that stood out to me is losing to Cal is unacceptable. That's Sports Reference has like a chart that shows you margin of victory or margin of defeat. And it's usually what I'll use to like conceptualize. All right, am I okay here for an unnoticed team? Like, are they trending in the right direction? Are they trending in the wrong direction?
Send me that.
UCLA's looks cool. Yeah, it looks good. UCLA's looks fine.
Yeah,
they haven't really been bad this year. They played Arizona really, really tight. They've been blowing out the teams they're supposed to blow out. They started the season with a tight win against Eastern Washington, but everybody kind of drops that cupcake game from time to time. But what we saw specifically in the back half of the game against Cal is a huge risk come Big Ten play, which is just about here. And what we saw from UCLA, an inability to control the paint, an inability to make your shot selection count, missing free throws, fouling, that will not work. If you can blow a game like that against Cal, you will blow a game like that against Northwestern, against Minnesota. Far be it from Michigan, Michigan State, Purdue. I'll put even Wisconsin in there, even though we don't want to talk about that much today.
We won't today. I promise. I promise I won't open any scars.
They're
I
awful.
Won't.
They're so bad.
Yep.
Like the football team. Anyway, UCLA, they're not done. They're not cooked by any means. But I want to make sure that they are on notice and that we are thinking about the way that they're playing basketball, because they are a media darling. They're in LA and they're ranked and they're good, right? And they show up, and they didn't show up in the end of that Cal game. You can't lose to an in-state rival like that. You cannot. It is not a good look. It's not acceptable. And I'm worried about their Big Ten capabilities.
And Cal's awful, right? So that loss means a whole lot more to me, at least, in how I'm going to value the rankings, than a 30-point win over West Texas, Arkansas, A&M, right? So a great call out, and I'll keep it obviously like you called out earlier in the Big Ten West, and I'm going to go USC. My call out here is: you ever heard that song by Bon Jovi called "Living on a Prayer"? And the reason why I'm saying that is because you look at this team and they started the season 7-0, including a very, very impressive stretch of victories in the Maui Invitational. They won the tournament. I'm getting there, right? 1 point win versus Troy, you let up 106 points. 3-point win versus Boise State, you let up 70 points, 67. 13-point win versus ASU, and then barely skated by Seton Hall and let up 81 points. And it's the brand of basketball that they're playing, right? To me, Rick, when we talk about brands, is not sustainable. They are relying on, in a Seton Hall game, 38 free throw attempts to win by 2 points. I mean, that's not going to be sustainable in a Big Ten, where you are not going to attempt 38 free throws in a Big Ten tournament game or a Big Ten game. These teams know how to play defense. They're physical without fouling. And right now, they're getting outshot. They're getting outscored in the paint. They're out assisted. They're out defended, but they're relying on 23 free throws made a game on some OKC Shai Gilgeous-Alexander bullshit that will not fly in the Big Ten. So their defense ranks outside the top 200, no matter what category you look at. They're plus 300 in the nation in offensive rebounds per game allowed. You got Oregon coming up, who is struggling, but then you have nothing back to back until University of, I believe, they have Michigan and then Michigan State back to back to start that Big Ten season. They are going to get absolutely dominated by those two teams. They might lose to Michigan and Michigan State by a combined 70 points. Because their brand of basketball right now is not trending in the right direction, and it's not sustainable against teams that know how to play actual defense. So I don't like that they're 7-0. It makes me mad. I don't like USC. So trending down for me, and don't let that record fool you.
We have
love this game.
Probably the best way to end Feast Week.
Oh, yeah.
We have our game of the week at the Emerald Classic, right?
Love it. Love it.
Let's jump over LSU DePaul.
Question before we start.
I'm excited
before we start. Is there a cooler logo than DePaul?
Probably not. Maybe the Bonnies.
Maybe the Bonnies. Okay. Set us up. I just wanted to get that out. Look at that logo. I mean, that is just. Anyways, keep us going.
I did not populate the rankings. I am noticing. Both these teams are down pretty far. LSU,
DePaul,
LSU somewhere. Justin will find you the rankings.
DePaul is 170. LSU is
60 for 60. LSU.
Yeah.
So again, right, we're trying to keep our game of the week on the Saturday for you guys. So we come from this show into the Saturday slate, have a game of the week on the slate. There are not always premier games, but much like we talked about last week, there are games between tournament teams that are going to be very entertaining to watch. I think this is one of them.
Hell yeah.
the games yesterday were phenomenally played.
Fun games.
And these teams on paper wouldn't seem to match up very well against each other. But this LSU team showed you yesterday what they can do on offense. This DePaul team showed you yesterday what they are capable of on defense. And the guard play for these teams is phenomenal. I am so excited to see who can control the ball and where that puts us in this game. So why don't you talk some X's and O's? That's more your place there, and I'll wax poetic about the feels when you're talking.
Hell yeah. Well, I'll start with LSU. You know, I think LSU was the worst team in the SEC last year, right? And it's really cool to see how well they've improved year over year on both sides of the ball, and capped by a really good win versus a Drake team that got out and won some tournament games last year. But there are some weaknesses that DePaul can exploit. LSU on the defensive side of the ball, Rick, just refuses to make teams uncomfortable. We think about the best teams in the nation on the defensive side of the ball. They're picking you up 3/4 court. They're not letting you initiate offense. You might be lucky to get a last-second 3-point heave at the end of the buzzer, and that is not the case with LSU. They let you get into your sets. They let you comfortably run your offense. They're 320th in forced turnovers per game, 195th in opponents' 3-point made. So there's things that DePaul can exploit if they were good on the offensive side of the basketball. With that being said, LSU is the 10th best 2-point percentage team in the country. So they play smart. They know what they're good at. They get downhill. They get to the free throw line, and they shoot smart shots. So for me, the keys for LSU is you have to go into halftime with the lead. This DePaul team, no matter how much they struggle on offense, is scoring 44 points per game, 60th in the nation in the second half. They can close games out. So you have to go into halftime with the lead. You have to grab defensive rebounds. You're third in the country in defensive rebounds per game, but you're allowing 10 offensive rebounds per game. And DePaul will take advantage of that because they convert second chance points at a very high level. Take care of the defensive glass. Please don't shoot threes. Please don't shoot any threes. You're DePaul's 40th in the country in 3-point defense. Get inside, get to the basket. And for me, if LSU does that, they're going to go ahead and take this game. What are your thoughts on LSU?
Yeah, and I think they won't make those mistakes. I think what I was seeing from an undefeated LSU team is a lack of discipline. They hadn't proved to me that they could make those smart decisions. And Drake is so good as a mid-major. They will expose any flaws in your psyche, in your formations, in your discipline. And LSU had nothing to expose. They played really clean basketball. I think that maturity there is the only thing that they were missing. And for me, if LSU wins this game, they're probably in my top 25. And we're talking about another SEC team up there. They have all the talent in the world. The only thing I really thought they were missing was that discipline. If they can marry a really disciplined approach with their athleticism, this LSU team is dangerous. And I think there's no better matchup for them ahead of this DePaul game than Drake was. I think that's the battle testing you need to beat a team like DePaul. And they did it, man. They came out and showed us that they can play smart basketball.
Yeah. And DePaul, DePaul for me is I would love DePaul to win this game because they're such a fun team to watch on the defensive side of the ball. But you look at what they scheduled so far this year: 13-point loss versus Buffalo, which is insane. But they played Northwestern close. They're highly inconsistent. They can't shoot worth a damn. They're 150th in 2-point percentage, 140th in 3-point percentage, and they can't shoot free throws. They've shot sub 50% field goal 4 out of 7 games, and they shot in the 30s out of 2 of those. So it's like, for me, DePaul, they have to win the first half because we know they can perform in the second half. You're a top 50 defense and you're a top 30, you're 31 in first half scoring defense. So take that lead into the halftime and then rely on your second half scoring to win this game. You have to stay out of foul trouble. LSU, like I said, gets to the line, they're fourth in free throws made in the country at like 25 a game. Like they play such smart basketball. They know what they're good at. You have to stay out of foul trouble. If you don't, you're screwed. And high pressure 3-point line extended, like I just talked about. If LSU gets downhill, you are cooked. LSU cannot shoot threes. Force them to initiate offense at the half court line because they're 156th in 3-point percentage. They can't shoot. If you do that, you might have a chance to snag this win. I'm really curious to see how this game pans out. I think for me, Rick, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick LSU to win this game. I think it's going to be tight because DePaul feels like a team that can upset an SEC team given their brand of basketball, but DePaul has to do more right than LSU has to do wrong for them to win the game. So I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, looking at this DePaul team, they have been really bad. Obviously out of Chicago, so a little bit of exposure to their basketball as much as anything is in Chicago, which is not really a Big Ten city for anyone who knows, and anyone who doesn't know. Chicago is not a Northwestern place. It's not a Big Ten place. It's kind of just a wasteland for college sports. Chris Holtmann might be the real deal. Chris Holtmann, I have talked at length about how I don't think coaches are it. I think it is at a mid-major, right? DePaul has been so bad, and beating Georgia Tech, who is a good win, and they're a passable Power 4 team. Not talking about mid-majors, so the MTE championship means something to lower mid-majors, upper mid-majors. It's important. It's exposure for your program, and being here, beating Georgia Tech to come to the Emerald Coast Classic Championship is a win. And it speaks to the job Holtmann's doing there, and it speaks to turning DePaul around. We talked about how wide open the Big East is. It's probably not this year for DePaul, but if you can continue to build on the successes of the program, it might be next year. It might be the year after that. I mean, this DePaul team is miles better than they have been in the past. I mean, this team hasn't been good since like the early 2000s. So being here is a win, and I know that's kind of bullshit, right? We don't really care about emotional victories.
Yeah.
But if you're a low tier mid-major, it does matter. And I think if DePaul can be in this game late, that's a win. That's a win. Controlling the flow of the game in a way where you only lose to LSU by 5, 6, 7, that is a win. That is a really good job by your guards. That's a really good job by the whole team to execute your game plan in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
I have LSU winning this game.
Yeah.
I do think it is close late. And again, for me, they should be proud. DePaul should be proud if they can hold this game tight. But I think LSU is trending for both of us in a direction where they're a top 25 team for dead ball dancing and a contender for the SEC. So, if you play this game close as DePaul, good on you. And if they can manage to win, Big East is there. Big East is there for the taking.
Yeah, agreed. And sorry, I was getting distracted by my sister acting a fool in the chat. So everyone, please ignore her and focus on the basketball. Ban her
from the chat.
Yeah, she's absolutely banned. Can you get her out of here now? Anyway, sorry for getting distracted. If DePaul wins this game, I'm going to quickly move them up the ladder, right? LSU is not a pushover. LSU is much better than last year. And this feels like a game where DePaul's defense has a chance to muddy up how LSU plays and make it a low-scoring affair. If you look at the over-under, which I'm going to let you talk on in a second, 153 is a low-scoring affair. I think there's a chance that DePaul does slow down LSU's offense. But I do think that LSU just has a bit too much firepower and a bit too much kind of historical pedigree playing in the SEC for DePaul to overcome right now. So from a betting perspective, what are you thinking here, Rick?
Yeah, the under is probably real close. My model has this 81-73.
Oh wow, so 8 points. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it would push the over. Just barely. I'm not touching this one with a 10-foot pole. Obviously, LSU wins this game, but there's no value on money line for LSU. I do I do think there's some value on the first half line. If you wanted to go DePaul money line first half, you could make a little bit there. I don't think it's on the back half though. I think if they keep this game tight and close, it plays into their strength as a team a little bit more because LSU is going to be gunning, right? They're going to be trying to play downhill, push that pace, go, go, go.
Yep.
DePaul did a great job. LSU is not Georgia Tech.
Yeah, agreed.
I don't know if you can slow these guys down, and they're deeper. So that depth is probably the difference in this game is
Agreed.
LSU can get in foul trouble, and the step down from the starters to the second string is not as glaring as it would be for a team like DePaul or even Georgia Tech.
Agreed. So it sounds like we're both taking LSU. And again, LSU wins this game. I'm probably slotting them ahead of Arkansas. I'm probably slotting them ahead of Kentucky. I'm probably slotting them ahead of Georgia. So there's a chance, I have them undervalued right now. Win this tournament and show me that you're for real. And we'll get you back up in the top 25. Sorry, my sister is still annoying the crap out of me in the chat. A couple of really good games this week. Really quick, Rick, if you don't mind me shouting them out.
Yeah, go for it.
Please, again, put the game of the week predictions in the YouTube comments. Please go on Chain Link. Rick will explain that in a second. Michigan State, Iowa on Tuesday, December 2nd. Very interesting game. We've talked a lot about Iowa this year and how they're playing a really good brand of basketball going into Big Ten play. Michigan State will win that game, but Iowa could make that very interesting. Tennessee and Syracuse. Tennessee's not good. Syracuse is even worse, but Syracuse has shown the ability to keep games close. So let's see what happens in that game. And then Clemson, Alabama on December 3rd, Wednesday. Should be really interesting. I'm low on Clemson. Rick is, I think, more accurately weighting Clemson in our top 25. Bama has shown to be vulnerable. What happens in that game? I believe it's in Tuscaloosa, but we will see if Clemson can come grab one. Any games that shout out to you?
The back half of the holiday weekend here.
Oh, God. If you're just joining us, Rick is having internet issues. I think his Wi-Fi router is like a piece of fruit or something. I think he's like trying to hardwire an Ethernet cord into like a rice cake. I don't know what's going on. Anyways, please put your game of the week predictions in our YouTube comments. We still haven't got any game of the week predictions in the YouTube comments, with the exception of my 70 or 80 something year old dad, who is the only one that does it. Please put them in the comments. If you want to see a new segment instead of on notice, put that in the comments as well. We'd be happy to get your feedback on if you want to hear our player of the year candidate predictions updated midseason, or if you want to have us review the worst team in all of 366 D1 basketball teams. We're open to suggestions and what you guys want to hear. So I'm not sure if Rick's going to try to jump back on, but thank you guys so much for watching. It's been a blast, kind of talking to you guys here. Go Purdue, obviously. Wisconsin sucks. My life is really good right now. So yeah, I think, appreciate you guys tuning in. Chain Link, you can see, did I get it right? It's up here. That is Rick's betting app. Alan's in the chat. He can tell you a little bit more about how Chain Link works as well. So yeah, we appreciate you guys, and we will talk very soon. So peace, you guys.